Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Metal Command podcast here after the break. Tony here with you. Let's get into the next topic of the show. We've had something very controversial happen among the thrash metal fan base. I don't know why it's a big controversy, but a lot of people are making a big deal about this. And that would be Megadeth announcing that they have a bonus track in their album and that they have recorded their own version of Metallica's Ride the Lightning, which obviously appeared on the second Metallica album of the same name. Now, obviously, Dave Mustaine co-wrote that song. He helped write a lot of the early material as well. I believe he wrote parts of Call of Cthulhu. And, of course, he talks about the fact that he wrote parts of Leper Messiah that appeared on Master Puppets. But he has announced that they've re-recorded a version of Ride the Lightning. I want you to watch this video clip really quick. And I want you to hear what he had to say as far as his reasoning why Megadeth decided to do this. Check out this clip.
On the new album we recorded Ride the Lightning, and the reason we did that was obviously it's the song that I had a lot to do with writing it, and James and I, when we were working on the song, it became clear to me when James first started playing guitar how good of a guitar player he was. And I thought it would be really cool to close the circle, to show respect, to play the songs that I've written with Metallica, and to honor our friendship, even though it's been strained and ruined from emotions over the years when we were not necessarily friendly. But one thing I've always had is I've always had a tremendous respect for James's guitar playing and Lars's songwriting. So it was cool to do this and add it to the record. We sped it up just a little teeny bit, and we kind of played around a little bit with the solo, and Timo and I both tossed it back and forth to each other. So you might hear a little bit of some differences with the tempos, and of course I sing different from James too, but once again, it was about completing the circle and just showing what James and I as guitar players did to change the world.
Okay, so that's Dave Mustaine talking about his reason and rationale for re-recording Ride the Lightning and putting it as a bonus track on the new Megadeth album. So a lot of you have messaged me. I've had a lot of emails asking me what I think about this, because obviously many people know I love Megadeth, and I've talked about Megadeth recently because of the new single. First off, let me say this. I'm intrigued. I'm actually kind of surprised. And I'm interested to hear what this is going to sound like. Now, I want to point out, folks, that Mechanics on the first Megadeth album is basically, their version, almost like a different version of the Four Horsemen that appeared in Kill 'Em All. Dave named the song, obviously the name of the song was different and it was arranged differently. But, a lot of the main riffs and a lot of the main parts are there. So they did do this back on the first album. And I have always been on record, and many of you that have followed my show, even back throughout the history of the radio show, remember, I used to always say that so many people, too many people, and so many people in the media, always, in my opinion, have always focused too much on Dave's early years when he was in Metallica, instead of focusing on a lot of the great stuff that he's done musically, with Megadeth. And I've always thought that the Metallica thing has always overshadowed a lot of his musical accomplishments in Megadeth. And I still think that. I still stand by that statement. At the same time, though, when I look at this, I can understand his mentality and why he would be doing something like this. Number one, if this is to be the last Megadeth album, he talks about, you heard that video, he talked about, the friendship that he had with James Hetfield. Now, I don't know what that friendship status is like. It's always hit or miss, in the media when these guys talk about each other. So I don't know what it's like behind the scenes. And The thing is, it doesn't matter, because back then there was a friendship. They had musical chemistry. And let's be real here. Dave helped create a lot of the early music that Metallica recorded, which ultimately led to their success. So this vibe of what he's talking about pretty much sounds like a celebration of what Dave has done musically over the years and what he did with Metallica. And I have no problem with him celebrating that, or even, re-recording this track to celebrate that, because he should be proud of those accomplishments. And let's say, look, let's say those guys don't like each other. And again, I don't know what their friendship status is. I don't know if these guys talk behind the scenes. I have no idea. I have no idea what goes on in either camp for either one of those bands, for that matter. However, even if let's say Dave Mustaine isn't a fan of James Hetfield, or they really don't like each other anymore, keep in mind, even if you have a falling out with somebody, you could still celebrate the accomplishments that you have had together. I brought this up in a previous episode of the podcast, talking about the John Schaefer Stu Block thing, right? I was part of a car magazine. In my opinion, I did some incredible work. And everybody else involved in the magazine, including the guy that put the magazine together, they all did some incredible work. And I'm still really proud of what was accomplished. Even though there has been a falling out, even though I left, even though when I left, I will probably tell you it wasn't on the greatest terms. The bottom line is, you can go look back at it, and you could still celebrate it. And I still celebrate it. I still celebrate the work that was done, because I'm proud of it. And even if you have a falling out with somebody, I'm proud of what they accomplished with that magazine as well. So I could see where Dave is talking about this when he talks about coming full circle, because he's really talking about what he created with those guys back in the early 80s. And let's be real here. Dave Mustaine wrote a lot of great stuff with Metallica and was a big part of their early success. I'm talking about the music, not just getting signed to a record label, but I'm talking about music that had been written, which really gave Metallica their early success. So I see this as more celebrating a music career, because if this is going to be his last album, let's say, for example, it is, I'm mostly sure it probably will be, just by the vibe of many of the interviews I've seen Dave, see Dave putting himself in, as far as the interviews I've watched or listened to with Dave and, various media outlets. But it's them celebrating this. Now, to this day, I'm still going to go down. I'll be on my deathbed saying that people talk about Metallica with Dave Mustaine in it way too much, and it overshadows Megadeth. A point that I have always made, and any time I had Dave Mustaine on my radio show, I would really stay away from the Metallica stuff, because it would be the same stories we've all heard for the last, 3 or 4 decades, and it gets old after a while. And I've always said it overshadows his musical accomplishments. But I think in this case, being that it's going to be the last Megadeth album, I think Dave really wants to show how proud he really is about stuff that he's done, and he should be. And not only that, but they're even though he talked about it, even though it's been put out there, it's a bonus track. It's not the focus of the album. It's not like it's the first song on the album or the third song on the album. It's basically a bonus track that looks to be listed at the very end of the record. So it's Dave going back to his roots, celebrating what he helped create with guys like Lars Ulrich and James Hetfield. And if you listen to that video, he's very complimentary of those guys. He has a lot of respect for them. And even if you have a falling out with people like that, you can still have a lot of respect for what they do and their ability, in this case, with Metallica, and James Hetfield and Lars, with the ability to help make that band successful and become successful songwriters. So that's how I view that. I I'm looking forward to hearing what it's going to sound like. Personally, if Megadeth had come out and said, yeah, we toyed with this, but we weren't going to do it, I'd be a little bit indifferent. I wouldn't really be disappointed. But now that it's out there, I'm really intrigued to hear what this is going to sound like. And it's funny because when I go back to the early days of the band and, listening to Megadeth for the first time and listening to Dave Mustaine sing, I had always wondered, what would it be like if Dave Mustaine recorded a version of himself singing Jump in the Fire or Phantom Lord or something like that. I've always thought that in my mind, especially in the early days, I've always had that thought in my mind. So now it's going to be interesting hearing him sing Ride the Lightning. And it's interesting too, because usually everybody with Dave, they focus on Kill 'Em All. They don't talk about Call of Cthulhu or, Ride the Lightning, even though Dave Mustaine helped co-write a lot of that stuff. You don't really hear people talk about him on those two tracks because he was well out of the band by then. So I think it's intriguing. I think it's pretty cool. I think that he should celebrate what he's done musically. It does take a little focus off of Megadeth because you're going back to the Metallica thing again. But at the same time, as a musician, I can completely understand why he would want to celebrate that and come full circle with it. So that's my take on it, folks. That's what I think. I'm curious what you think. Leave a comment. Are you interested in hearing this? Do you think he should just stay away from the Metallica thing? Or are you kind of indifferent to it? I'd love to see your comments. Hey, it's Tony here from the Metal Command Show. I want to thank you for watching this portion of the program. Since 1998, I have hosted the show, which started off as a radio program and is now into the podcast format. So I want to thank you for watching and or listening. And if you want to support the program, hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell to be notified anytime I do post any content. A lot of you have been supporting the show and really, really helping this show grow, and I cannot do it without all of you. So with that said, thanks for watching. Stay metal.